you might be hoping that the brand new season reward for season rank 75 that you can pick up in the season pass for 2000 gold, not the actual tank for 2000 but the actual season pass, would be a brilliant one. But today, let's have an actual in-depth look at what the Panzer 58 Mutz, the German Tier 8 medium tank, is all about, and why in the Year of the Dragon it may fall short of some of the other tanks you get as part of the season pass. So let's take a look at what this thing can do by showcasing a replay, as well as showing you the kind of optimal setup that I use to be able to have some decent games in it and be able to carry a little bit more hopefully than if I was to use other setups. So straight away we have a vehicle that has 280 alpha damage. Now 280 is pretty decent. It's that nice kind of range where you combine a very good reload whilst also having a significant amount of alpha damage, and alpha damage can be king in World of Tanks sometimes, where you can basically trade with a lot of other vehicles. And considering that most tier 8 medium tanks will have between 240 to 320, you're kind of in that middle range. Now yes, there are some medium tanks that will have 390, but they have significantly worse reloads and they typically have significantly worse gun statistics than this Panzer 58 Mutz does have in the game. But of course, that isn't everything when it comes to a medium tank. You have to consider the actual view range of vehicles and to be able to speed around the battlefield, and this certainly has a good combination of all kind of stats on a vehicle within World of Tanks. But what have we actually done to improve its statistics? Well, we're running this tank with advanced optics. This is to boost up the view range. This tank primarily needs to get both combined assisted and actual damage if you want to have some fantastic games. And unlike its brother in the Wraith Panzer 58 Mutz, which gets a load of spaced armor, this really doesn't have any armor, much like most of the mediums at tier 8. When you come up against anything of a similar tier, or you know, one tier higher, you basically are paper. And this one is in fact even more paper because even lower tier vehicles are going to be able to basically pen you straight through the upper plate. So you don't really have a lot of armor, and it isn't really that new player friendly, which is kind of annoying when you consider that a lot of newer players who pick up the season pass will be able to get this one, and they'll probably find it a little bit of a struggle because yeah, you have to combine both view range and getting actual damage, which when you're a new player can be quite difficult to understand how you get both, and also be able to kind of perform well in a medium tank that has no armor. But the Panzer 58 Mutz is all about kicking out that damage pretty quickly, and although this tank is a tier 8 vehicle, and considering that we've kitted this tank out in the maximum way, we've got a commander, we've got a fully equipment out crew, it has 2,900 damage per minute, and by no means is this awful. But if you were to compare it to some of the other vehicles like the Wraith, which is the Panzer 58 Mutz with a load of spaced armor, as you can see in the armor viewer, gets a load of spaced armor, making the armor actually work from time to time, whereas the Mutz doesn't get that. However, of course, with the standard Mutz, you get that extra 6 kilometers an hour because you don't have that armor weighing you down, and you've also got an extra 100 hit points, and typically just slightly better in most areas. The only real downside to playing the Wraith Panzer 58 is that speed and the mobility, but the Panzer 58 Mutz can take advantage of that and maneuver around the map to get more damage in areas where the Wraith could sit in front of people. So it really does have a little bit of a harder playstyle in my opinion, and although they have basically the same damage per minute, this tank feels a lot better to use in a lot of situations. The tank has 10 degrees of gun depression, meaning you can get on ridge lines and use the tank how it's supposed to be played as kind of a fast-paced medium tank that can kind of move around. It isn't ridiculously fast, but it's all about kind of positioning well, and a tank that is 50 kilometers an hour as its top speed with a decent power to weight ratio of 17 certainly can do that quite well. And with that being said, obviously speed comes with some disadvantages, which come in the form of accuracy when you're on the move, hence why you want to be using gun stabilizer. Now this isn't a guarantee, you don't have to use the equipment setup that I'm using, this is just the ones that I prefer when I have a tank like this and similar vehicles like this. So with the gun stabilizer you improve accuracy both on the move, when you're moving your tank, and also when you're turning the turret. This means that if you are trying to kind of maneuver around the battlefield and for some some reason someone kind of gets spotted and in front of you and you don't have time to fully aim, or maybe you auto aim them, it just makes hitting them a lot easier, which is hopefully going to be able to secure you more hits because your accuracy is better. So this is something that is very nice on a faster paced medium tank, and in fact on most medium tanks as well. We then use Advanced Loader. This is for the damage per minute. We want to make sure that we've got as much damage per minute as possible and humanly possible, because we want to be able to output that damage as quickly as possible so that we can, lock people down, keep them tracked. Maybe you can help out your teammates and recover some of the damage that maybe you have actually received back on the opponents, and so the Advanced Loader can definitely do that, and it's almost a staple of almost every vehicle in the game that has the option of being able to use Advanced Loader, especially when you don't have anything else that is really necessary on a vehicle like this. Potentially using traction system to boost the top speed could be useful in some maps, but unfortunately on console we don't have that ability to swap between the equipment in the games that we play. So as a general rule, this is kind of the most overall build that I can use on the Panzer 58 Mutz, and with the advanced optics we boost up the view range to spot some people, get a bit more combined assistance and damage combined together, and yeah, this is a very, very nice one. And with 212 pen on its standard rounds, it's not the highest, so you are going to need a few premium rounds for higher tier vehicles, especially tier 10 vehicles that you're coming up against. You really have to aim for weak points, which is why the accuracy can come in a lot nicer because you've got that vertical stabilizer, and so pinpointing weak points on higher tier vehicles is much easier when you have the vertical stabilizer. So yeah, another reason why I would use it. And then of course the standard rounds, you basically can pen most tier 8 vehicles with 212 pen. It's only really the heavies and the super heavies that are going to be the problem when you're trying to pen things. So just be aware of that. The Panzer 58 Mutz, a brilliant all-rounder tank, but probably not the best if you've played it as a newer player. So let's jump in to see what this tank can do. So we jump into Himmelsdorf, and this is a map that you would typically not expect a paper medium tank to be able to have good games in. Now granted, we are in a top tier matchup, but you can kind of see what the Mutz is very good at. I felt like this replay showcases the general nature of the Panzer 58 Mutz, and without showing you tons and tons of replays focusing on each individual aspect, it's good to get a generalized replay that I feel like will show you everything all in one, and so you can understand how you can play these sorts of tanks. And I certainly use them when I'm kind of thinking about how I can improve and finding out what the games where I have good games and where you felt like you actually had an impact, and kind of looking through them and realizing the key points of the battles and stuff like that, so that you can use them later on down the line when you're playing other vehicles, which is primarily what you're going to be doing when you're playing premium vehicles. So with that being said, you can see that there's the Bourrasque up on top of the hill. You've got quite a good distribution of heavy tanks down on D7 and D8 on the enemy team, so a lot of them are going to be down there. From that sort of deployment, you'd be expecting that there'd be quite a few vehicles that are kind of going to win that flank, and so we really need to deal with whatever is actually up here and help out the team as much as possible, which is why we're going to try and lock down the Tiger 131. When you're playing in a medium tank like this, trying to get a few shots into the tracks of enemy tanks is going to help you not only get assistance but actual damage as well, and of course just trying to help out your teammates as much as possible, going for where you need to. And here you go, the final shot on the Lynx 6x6 removes him from the game, and very quickly off the bat, just playing a little bit reserved as a support vehicle has helped us get 1400 damage nearly. And you can see here the Type 59, I believe, is trying to push down the hill. Not the best idea when you're playing in that tank, but you can see here we managed to hit the T28 prop there, trying to go for the Cupola. But this is where we load the premium rounds. This is where 212 pen can be a limiting factor. We want to be able to guarantee pens against some of these vehicles. Now, I say that the Panzer 58 doesn't have good armor, but it does bounce occasionally. But as I always say with tanks like this, yes, it might look like it bounces rounds, but for the most part you are going to be taking a ton of rounds, and so you have to just be aware that when people do come, that you are going to lose a lot of hit points, and for the most part you cannot rely on the armor that this tank has. So please don't rely on the armor that this tank has when you are playing in your games. Now you can see that we got a shot onto the KV-3. We're going to use this position here, which gives us a free shot into the back of the Yahtzee here, who looks like he's actually trying to turn around, but we have some boys coming from behind us. We wait for the Yahtzee to turn fully onto us. And now we've really got to rely on the teammates coming in to help us. So we go for one on the IS-2. Both vehicles in front of us are on a low amount of hit points anyway, so we need to get rid of them. The IS-2-2 finishes off our teammate in the Bourrasque, but we're now behind him, finish him off, and now it's time to finish off this T-28 prototype. So what do? We go for the tracking shot to help our teammate out here. Hopefully the T-28 proc can't turn around and deal damage to him, and then we finish him off with that last shell. 3,500 damage in a pretty quick fashion. This is kind of what the Mutz can do. It has that damage potential. It's very good at mobilizing and being a support role, but as soon as you find yourself in a situation with lots of vehicles around you, you're gonna lose most of your health. And unfortunately we don't get any more damage in this game, and we didn't even pen with HE on the FE207 artillery there. But yeah, not a bad result at all for the Panzer 58 Mutz, and hopefully giving you an indication of what this tank can do. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure that you do think about liking the video if you did, and of course if you aren't already subscribed and you want to see every single review of all of the new season pass tanks, then hit that subscribe button as well, as it massively helps me out. And even if you didn't do any of those things, hopefully you've had a good time watching, and you'll join me back in some other videos. Take a look at these on screen right now if you want to watch some more, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.